All right, so we're also in chapter 9, but in your pharmacy practice for technician books, the business of community pharmacy. We see this chapter throughout a couple different sequences, so we're going to be covering it again. This is going to be part 1 video. So community pharmacy. So in a community pharmacy, which is another name for retail pharmacy, so things like Fry's, Walgreens, Walmart, Safeway, CVS, they have what they call a back area and a front area. So a back area is behind the counter, and that's where they store all of the prescription medications. It's not just free access to prescription medications for any customer or patient walking in the facility. The front area is the area that is available to our customers as they come in. It was actually popularized by Walgreens in the 1960s. They were the first company to really do this, to stock their shelves with over-the-counter drugs, dietary supplements, medical supplies. So it made it kind of a full self-service, again, which Walgreens popularized in the 1960s. It also put forth the forefront of customer service, which is now a critical key to the success of a community or retail pharmacy. So the use of over-the-counter drugs is increasing. So there's a couple different reasons why over-the-counter use is increasing. One is the increased cost and inconvenience of physicians' visits, the rising cost of prescription medications, lack of health insurance for patients, and then some patients have high drug deductible insurance, so they have to pay a high deductible. So those are some of the reasons why patients are self-medicating, but it's also the ability to self-medicate with over-the-counter medications. These drugs, most of them have been prescription drugs at one point, and the FDA over a long period of time deemed them safe to be allowed to be given over the counter for a patient's purchase, as long as the labeling is clear and in layman's terms, where anybody that picks up the bottle can truly understand how to take it, what to avoid, those type of things. All over-the-counter drugs are regulated by the FDA, so they must be proven safe and effective. Many of the popular drugs used to require prescriptions, so things like ibuprofen, omeprazole, which is Prilosec, Claritin, the Flonase nasal spray, all of these things, Allegra, those were all prescription drugs. Even Benadryl were prescription drugs at one point, and the FDA deemed them safe and allowed them to be now available over the counter. Now, there's still certain strengths of these medications that are not available over the counter. So, for example, 800 milligrams and 600 milligram tablets of ibuprofen, those are prescription only. You can typically only find 200 milligram tablets over the counter. You can make an 800 milligram dose from that, but they do not dispense an 800 milligram single tablet of ibuprofen or even 600 milligrams over the counter. That is a prescription item only. So on slide 8, it actually gives you a chart of what the common over-the-counter drugs are, what their brand name, what the generic name is, and what the indication or what the use is for. I would definitely go over this chart and really kind of memorize it, because this is the top ones that you're going to see and probably assisting your customers with on being able to help them find these drugs. So your role as a technician in the retail setting, you're going to help your customers locate the product. And I'm a very big advocate of coming out from behind the counter and helping your customers. Nothing infuriates me more than to seeing staff saying, I think it's down aisle 3, down towards the end on the bottom. No, come out from behind the counter, walk your patient or your customer over there, show them that extra step of customer service. You're going to bring any over-the-counter related questions to the pharmacist's attention. Now, this is a very gray area, okay? Let me grab a bottle of something real quick. All right, so the very gray area. As a pharmacy technician, okay, We can answer questions on over-the-counter items as long as the answer is coming directly from the bottle or the label or the box itself. Okay, so this is ibuprofen, 200 milligrams, Members Mark. I actually get it at Sam's Club because you get a whole bunch in there for very cheap. So if I had a patient that was asking me questions about this, and let's say they say, how do I take this? I could read to them the directions. So I would say, the directions state you can take 1 tablet every 4 to 6 hours while symptoms persist. So I'm reading that directly from the label. I can do that. I can answer any question that can be answered from reading the label or the box word for word. So if I had a patient that said, well, I have kidney disease, can I take ibuprofen? That is clinical. I'm not going to find that answer here, so I'm going to refer them to the pharmacist. If they say, how much is ibuprofen? I can answer that. If they say, how many milligrams are the tablets? They're 200 milligrams. I can answer that. Okay? I can even answer, do not use. If you've had an allergic reaction to ibuprofen, right before or after heart surgery. So if they have anything that doesn't qualify or fall within that answer, you're referring them to the pharmacist. Okay, so that's the gray area. You're going to sell and stock over-the-counter products. You're going to order and rearrange the inventory. So rotation of stock or rotating stock. It's just like if you were stocking your freezer or your pantry at home with food or frozen items. You're not going to shove the brand new meat you just bought on top of the meat that you bought a month ago. You're going to rotate that up. You're going to put the newer item that you just purchased on the bottom, so you're using the first chicken and meat or whatever you bought earlier that's going to expire sooner. So it's the same concept, okay? You will remove stock when the drug expires or is recalled, so we'll talk about drug recalls. You're going to show patients where to find the information on the OTC product labels, okay? So again, OTC drugs have been found safe and effective by the FDA. That's a requirement. Over-the-counter drugs are regulated by the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA. So they are found safe and effective when taken for the approved purpose and following the directions. So, however, even over-the-counter drugs can have unwanted side effects. They can even be dangerous when used at higher than normal doses. So, there are some over-the-counter sleep aid medications that people have abused to either intentionally or unintentionally take their lives. Taking too much ibuprofen is dangerous. Okay, too much of it in a single day can be damaging to both liver and kidneys. Tylenol is the same thing. You can have a Tylenol overdose. So even though the FDA has deemed it safe, there's still risks involved because patients have to be very careful and be very aware and cognizant of how they're taking these medications. Over-the-counter cough and cold products should not be given to children under the age of 6 years old. In fact, if you go into any retail pharmacy and you look at any of the cough and cold syrups, even specifically for children, it will not give you any dosing for any child under the age of 6 on the label. That has to be determined safe from the physician and the pharmacist. Use of over-the-counter products should actually be limited to 7 days or less. And the reason for that is if you're treating something that is lasting longer than 7 days. So for example, a fever. If you have a fever that is lasting more than 7 days, you are definitely want to go see a physician because there's something going on. You probably have an infection of some sort, so you don't want to just keep treating it or covering or masking the symptoms. That's why they recommend 7 days. So restricted sales of certain over-the-counter products. So Schedule 5 drugs, particularly the cough syrup. So the cough syrups that contain codeine. And again, let me be very clear here. There are some states that allow codeine-containing cough syrups to be dispensed in a specific amount over the counter without a prescription. Okay, very few states. Arizona is not one of those. Arizona requires a prescription, okay? But in some states, it is allowed. And so the reason for that is federal law allows it, okay? But in the state of Arizona, the state of pharmacy, the State Board of Pharmacy has passed the law that says we cannot dispense any C5 codeine containing cough syrups over the counter. So in this way, we look at, well, there's federal law that says yes, we can, and state law that says no, we can't. In a pharmacy, we will always follow the more strict law. In this case, the state is more strict than the federal law, and that's what we're going to follow. In some states, very few, I can't think of which ones off the top of my head, but very few states still allow the codeine containing cough syrups to be dispensed over the counter, but it is in limitation. So you can't just go in and buy, a gallon of it. There's certain restrictions. So one, it must be stored behind the counter. They can't have it out on the shelf for free reign because people would steal it. You can only sell 4 ounces to a single customer in a 48-hour period. Again, not in Arizona, but in other states. Only a pharmacist or a directly supervised technician can sell it. So that means the pharmacist has to be watching you while you're dispensing it, getting it packaged, getting the patient's information, because they have to provide identity. You have to write down their information on a logbook when you're dispensing that out. The purchaser must be 18 years or older, and they must provide valid proof of that identity. Some states and all drug insurance providers require a signed or e-prescription in order to dispense the Schedule 5 OTC drug. So again, Arizona, if you plan on staying here and working in Arizona, you don't have to worry about that because we require a prescription for it. So when you have a customer, if you were in another state that followed federal law, you're going to record the sale of the item in a logbook. And that's going to entail you taking down the name and address of the purchaser, which is going to be provided by their identification, the date of birth, the date that the purchase took place, the name and quantity of the Schedule 5 drug that you dispensed, and then the name and initials of the pharmacist handling or approving the sale. So if the pharmacist is the only one doing the dispensing, only his or her initials will be there. If you're doing it and the pharmacist is overseeing it, there'll be 2 sets of initials, yours and then the pharmacist stating that they oversaw you dispensing that to the person that is purchasing it. So that's slide 13. We're actually going to go ahead and pause there. If you want to go ahead and look up states that still allow it, that would be an interesting extra little thing for you to do.